people, it is a very, very, very important thing to do. Any questions on that? And I've got some handouts. Okay, I've got some handouts that I would be happy to send to you if you give me a business card afterwards on how you sell to all the different personality types that we just talked about. Because if you're in the business of money raising, if you're in the business of starting a business, these are really important tools. Yes, sir. Somebody had a question.
So, since you've seen thousands of presentations, you've seen thousands of CEOs. It's not essential that everybody has the director, ruler, kind of personality type, right? Can you demolish this myth that you had to be a certain personality type to head an organization, to found an organization? Because a lot of people who are either the analytical type will say, oh gee, I can't do the rah-rah stuff, I can't be so direct, I can't command a certain people. But if you see, examples of companies out there, you see all kinds of people. But in your experience, the kind of types you see, and the fact that you're a certain personality type doesn't inhibit you from actually heading an organization. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. And Michael can certainly address this as well. You can be any type of personality and head up an organization. And what then it takes is creating your team around you, because your team can fill in the areas that you are lax in. Let me give you a perfect example of this, and this is probably an old example, but it's the Chicago Bulls. Does anyone remember that basketball team? For a number of years, they won everything for I think about 8 years. They just were winning everything. And they had some 4 people on that team. They had a guy by the name of Michael Jordan. He was the director ruler on that team. He was the one that controlled things on that team. They had a guy by the name of Tony Kukoc. We probably don't remember that name because Tony Kukoc was the relator on that team. He just kind of put everybody together and made it happen. They had a guy by the name of Dennis Rodman. He was the entertainer. Dennis Rodman is still around. I think he just came back from North Korea or doing something.
Still the entertainer.
He's still the entertainer, exactly.
Still an entertainer.
And then they had a guy by the name of Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen was the logical man. He was the one that could stand at that three-point line and he would throw a perfect three-point time after time after time. So Phil Jackson knew how to identify their personalities. He was the leader. And he knew how to identify their personalities and put them in the positions of their strengths. And there's a book out called by Buckingham, I think, that's called First Develop Your Strengths and Then Get Rid of Your Weaknesses. We spend so much time in our lives building our weaknesses that we need to understand and identify our strengths. So Phil Jackson knew how to do that, and he spent that time giving them what they wanted to do and knowing where they were going to be successful. So absolutely, you can be an analytical person as a CEO. You bring your team around you that is going to, you fill in the blanks. You don't want 4 of you, or 3 of you, or 2 of you. You want people that will complement and work together. That's very critical. Thanks for the question, good question. The successful people in doing raises of capital, we've had an interview, you come back, you stay in the face of, and I don't know where I don't want to step on Michael's toes because he's going to start talking about these, but we had just recently a case where a gentleman started coming with a company, it was a biotech company, and they're still in the first stages of trials where most of the time people don't invest in them. But this company, the man was so compelling, he played football for Michigan. And so he came in and he developed a play chart of what the company was doing and how they were growing. And he was able to identify with most of the people in the audience. Most of them were male in this particular setting, and he was able to identify with them. He brought the stock in about $1. The stock traded at over $17 in January of this year. I think it's filtered down to about 12 now, but he has come back time and time again. We got a $3 million raise of capital for him, and he has just come back, and he's persevered. He has gone through. You don't come in one time, make a presentation, and expect to walk out with something. In the old .com days, you could do that. We had situations where people would come in and they would say, I have a problem because one of your brokers picked up my $5 million raise and I don't have any product left to sell. That doesn't happen today. It's through tenacity, it's through understanding people, it is through making those contacts, doing that networking, and thereby being successful. Any more questions?
I have.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I mean, there's a lot of techniques and all this stuff now when you do online. I mean, to say when you do face-to-face presentations, and everything. But is there any specific technique that we can address for our current web presentations? We keep doing a lot of online presentations, both technical, commercial, and all that stuff. Is there any specific technique that you can, tell us how do we get hold of your online presentations?
Okay. Thank you for the question. Good question. And with that, as I mentioned to you earlier, that this Moravian study was done, and 55% in person is body language. That's what they're hearing. 38% is the tonality of your voice. 7% of the words you say. So suddenly you are in a one-way communication. You are listening to a webinar. How do you stay engaged in that, especially if the person doing the presentation doesn't fit your personality style? The way you can stay engaged is that because then all of a sudden you have 100% of your communication is done through words. And we don't listen very well. We pointed that out a little earlier. So what you can do, some techniques that you can use during web presentations is you've got to change the tonality of your voice. You've got to bring people back. If I talk this same way for 1 hour on a webinar talking about the benefits of my company and talking about what is very important to me, you'd be asleep. And so you need to practice. I suggest to each of you, if you're going to do a webinar or even an in-person presentation, that you tape record your voice, number one. And people go, oh, I can't do that. Yes, you can. It's very important. Tape record your voice. Understand when you're presenting to a group of investors, they're not as smart as you are about the particular product that you are talking about, most of the time. And so what we tell people is they don't necessarily need to tell us how to build the watch. They don't necessarily need to tell us how to dig the oil well. They need to tell us what's in it for them, that radio station, WIFM, what's in it for me. And so when you're doing a presentation, if you're going to do a webinar, if you're going to make a web presentation, you need to change that tonality of your voice. You need to alter your sitting. You can't just sit in one position. Get closer to them, move back from them, engage them without ever having the opportunity to ask them questions or in being engaged in person. That way, because you realize the average person can listen for like 3 minutes and then they're off on a train, right out that door. They're thinking, man, how long is she gonna talk? And so your presentation needs to be succinct, it needs to be short, it needs to provide a little bit of humor along with specific points. You need to do the bullet points, you need to wrap people around you to understand the people that are more relator personalities. And that way you will engage more people at a longer period of time. In order to listen more than 3 or 4 minutes, you have to actually teach your brain to do that. It isn't something that we do naturally. We're so engaged in this fast-forward world, and we just don't listen any longer than about 3 or 4 minutes. So you have to make a decision up here, and you have to tell yourself, okay, I'm going to listen for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to test myself on what I actually heard. And you can lengthen the amount of time that you can listen. But listening skills are very important, as are presentation skills, because I've seen people go to sleep in audiences, especially after lunch. We see people going to sleep all the time. Or we see people talking about this wonderful thing that they have invented, and it's the best thing since sliced bread, and you're over my grade level, and they don't care. So understand your audience, that's the key, and the tools that we've just talked about will allow you to be a better understander of your audience. I've got a couple of books called The 12 Magic Slides, and it is how to wow VCs, angels, and institutional investors. It just came out probably 2 weeks ago, and one of our brokers, a fellow by the name of Paul Getty, with Satwick Securities in San Francisco, has written the book. He has been in the institutional fundraising for a lot of years, and so he's just come out with this book, and we see people coming in to do presentations, and they have a 20-minute time slot, which is really max. You really don't even need that much. But they'll come in and they'll do a presentation and they'll have 87 slides. You can't get through 87 slides in 20 minutes, and people don't care. And so this is a great tool. Paul will be at our conference where you can pick up a book. You can have him autograph it for you. And if you are all invited down to participate, we have some companies that will be making presentations over the course of pretty much 1.5 days at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, the 11th and 12th and 13th, I guess, of February. And you're invited there if you are an investor interested in looking at companies. If you are a company, we're going to maybe make you a challenge. Michael and I are going to talk about it for 2 companies to perhaps come down and to present to our group of brokers and investment bankers and just see how it goes if you're at that point. But I'm going to let Michael talk more about that. So any questions, any more questions? I've got 2 books to give away, so we'll do drawings for those and give you away a couple of books. These are great tools for you as well. I hope that you remember and I've got, if anyone wants copies of how to sell to different personality types, I can provide you with some names of books that you can look at, and I can also send you some information as well. Remember your passion. Remember that purpose, attitude, security, success, initiative, ownership, or opportunity, and nurturing others. Remember how to communicate and the fact that we miscommunicate. And remember personality types. Those are the things that those are the soft skills that are going to get you the money that Michael's going to talk about now. So thank you all for being attentive, and here's Michael.
So, well, objectives are your growth. Crowdfunding definitely removes that. You don't have to be in the presence of anybody. You can just show your idea, probably a little bit of advertising on social networking. You're done. So, what is your, opinion about that? What is the future of this?
Okay, the question was, what is it with crowdfunding? With crowdfunding, you can show your idea and you can stick it on the internet and you can be done with it. And we are, first of all, an SB2 study was done indicating that before somebody really wants to put serious capital in your company, they want to meet with you face to face at least 3 times. And so with the crowdfunding, it's taking all of that away. There are young people, especially some of the younger people, that prefer that because they don't want the personal contact. They don't need the personal contact. We're very concerned as an organization with what could happen because you can there are some really good people out there and there are some really bad people out there. And with crowdfunding, you are setting yourself up for not knowing exactly who you're dealing with. And so with that, once again, you need to make your presentation and you need to make it so compelling enough so that people will want to invest in your stock. Will they sell it off right away? Perhaps. Then you're going to get into a pump and dump situation, and that's never a good situation to be in, where you have someone that you really aren't aware of coming in and doing damage to your company. So our whole attitude on crowdfunding is to be careful and to verify. We're not big proponents of it at this point in time because I don't think in the long run it's going to be beneficial.